What is up, everybody? RLTK Podcast. Jordan here, doing something a little bit different. There's a few of us in the spot today as we open a new season. Wanted to try and engage in a little bit different way and take a little bit more of a conversational approach. So I got my boy Thomas Brackeen, old Bishop DMV. Yep, I'm coining that. You know what I'm saying? Putting it out there publicly, putting it on Front Street. Got my boy Jeff from Phoenix. Will Cumby from Houston, and Jesse from, we're going to say, do I say Boston or do I say Lynn, bro? Like, I don't want to be disrespectful.
Yeah, but you could say Lynn, but for all the people that have no idea where Lynn is, Boston is always.
Okay, bet. From Boston. Okay. Well, man, we just going to chop it up a little bit. Love to ask you guys a question to get this thing going. You know what I'm saying? Well, here's the first question. Are the Dallas Cowboys God's team? That's the first question.
As a Dallas Cowboys fan, I want to say yes, but based on the last 20 to 30 years, I can only say
you just say yes, bro.
So
you just
great.
You just say yes, bro. That's all you say. You just say yes.
Yes.
Okay, there we go.
If we equate the Dallas Cowboys' efforts to the children of Israel, then I would say yes, because they are.
That's crazy.
They're woefully disobedient and always going backwards. And so they're just wandering until finally they get it right and they get a new leader.
Bro, that's crazy.
Says, be strong and courageous.
Bro, that's crazy.
Wherever you
I feel like Pharaoh is leading them, right?
Yo, that's wild.
They're just circling the Super Bowl.
He says circling the Super. Bro, we circling the division right now. We ain't even circling the Super Bowl. What you talking about? You know what I'm saying? So, Jeff, are we God's team, bro? Dallas Cowboys, God's team.
No, not even close. Not even in the conversation.
So
Can't say
what
much
are
for
we,
the
bro?
Cardinals, though.
They just got a new coach.
Ain't they a college team?
New head coach, things are looking up. You know, new leadership. Be strong and courageous. We're in it.
All right. Jesse, Dallas Cowboys, God's team.
So I don't watch football like that, but as a New Englander, I'm a default Patriots fan, bro. So
I'm sorry.
It's a good time to
gotcha.
be hated again, so I'll say no.
I mean, yeah, everybody's definitely hating on y'all, bro.
Yeah.
Belichick not making it into the Hall of Fame first ballot. That's crazy.
Yeah.
But so
That's interesting, but it is what it is. We'll see if they do that to Tom Brady. That'd be wild.
yep.
Hey, man,
Man.
I'm grateful you guys are willing to jump on and chop it up a little bit. You know, we do. We like to get into those hard conversations that no one else likes to get into, so let's go ahead and go there. Our country, the place that we live right now, is experiencing some very interesting things as it pertains to immigration, as it pertains to ICE, so on and so forth. It's interesting for me, because full disclosure, I'm not an American citizen, right? I'm from the UK, have a green card. Yes, I'm making that clear. I have one of those, right? Have a green card. And yeah, I come from another country, raised in another country. And so this is a really interesting experience for me because it's different. It's new. And so, and then being in youth ministry, where I'm in youth ministry, having the conversations that I'm having, hearing the things that I'm hearing, and all you guys being in different contexts as well, I know that that's going to have implications for your experiences and stuff like that. But I really just wanted to get some insight from you guys. Like, what are you seeing where you're at? What are you hearing? What are you experiencing? Where are you seeing the Lord, man? Where are you seeing Jesus in this? Who wants to jump in on that? Who's gonna go first?
I'll go first. I mean, because you posed you said a lot.
I
right?
did.
There's a lot to unpack in that. Is where do we see it as youth leaders? How's it affecting our ministries? How do we personally feel? That's a big question. I think personally, I can say that my heart is broken for so many people who are affected by this, directly and indirectly. A lot of us work in nonprofit spaces where the students that we serve, there's a level of fear. You know, we were experiencing where people don't want to sign up for things because putting their name on documents could potentially, you know, allow them to be more visible. And so that's shifted attendance numbers and even giving opportunities that we have. We have not been able to do that the way that we normally do because of just how everything is going on. But it should not stop us from the gospel message, right? I love how Jesus went out of his way to meet the woman. It was not on the way. And so there is going to be some inconvenience in this time, but it should not stop us from the Great Commission, the calling that is on our lives to go out, to share, to serve, to love. We're just going to have to be more creative in our efforts. But my heart hurts right now for what's happening across our country.
I'll jump in. I think just piggybacking on what Will said, I believe it's just a really tough time from a lot of aspects. I think about a parent that I recently talked to whose child is black but goes to a middle school that is predominantly Hispanic in our area, and also talking to another youth pastor in our area who's a middle school teacher at another middle school in our area who has a large population of Hispanic students. And just the stories that I hear from both of students talking about being in fear of going home and their parents not being there, or hearing stories about parents just totally keeping their kids from going to school completely because of the fear of being targeted. And so that's not the gospel to me and how we represent. And to me, it's just a matter of time. When does it start to affect our black students? As we do research that our civil rights are even at stake. And so there was messaging in the news recently about one of the last bills that was going to be passed that they had to remove language about giving the government the power to deport U.S. citizens. And so I think we just have to be very cautious and prayerful in this season because this is coming down our lane and is affecting our ministries indirectly and directly in some way. And so we have to prepare ourselves, we have to educate ourselves, and we have to ask ourselves, what is the mission of the gospel, and not this propaganda gospel that's being spewed. But I'm gonna leave it there because this is a pain for me, and I could go. But yeah.
Jesse,
Hey,
Jeff, any thoughts? Go ahead, bro.
yeah, I think for the students we're serving in Phoenix and in our neighborhood is predominantly Hispanic. And so like this isn't anything new for these families. This has been ongoing, just kind of comes in waves. You know, I mean, this was happening in 2008, 2012, you know, through the years. So but it feels a little different this time. There's, and I think social media and the media has a role in that, but it also feels different. Like when we see what ICE activity in our neighborhood, it's a lot different than before. And then it's like Will and Thomas, what you guys were saying about the fear of going to school. There's the high school, the district has made online learning an option, so you can sign up for that. Our kids who are in the elementary school district here, they're telling me that, you know, they have a lot of friends that aren't in school anymore. The classes are getting smaller because of that fear. So that's the reality we see. And then there's like the nuance too of conversations we have within the immigrant community of people that have, quote unquote, done the right thing and gone through the long process, often expensive process of becoming documented, becoming a citizen. And so there's a lot of nuance, and it's not just you know, this side or this side. And I think at the heart of it is seeing the image of God in everyone, like we were talking about before we jumped on the call. And that approach of, like, we're just going to dehumanize anybody who doesn't agree with us or doesn't look like us. But I would say, like, for me personally, I feel like, I don't know. I don't even know how to say it. It's just, it grieves me, the way that we're treating each other. And, Thomas, you're right. If, like, that isn't good news. It's not the gospel. It's not good news for everyone, like Lisa Sharon Harper says in her book. But I think it's also stirring up some conversations in students about how we look out for each other, how we have conversations. So yeah, I feel like there's a lot. There's so many different things that are happening and conversations to be had. But if I was going to say big picture, I would say the dehumanizing effect has been brutal.
Yeah, it's interesting. I come at it from two perspectives. My dad and my mom both emigrated from Central America to the States, and so I'm, like I said, be considered first gen. My wife, very very similar story. She was born in Mexico, and then came to the States when she was like pretty much a baby. And so you've kind of heard this narrative somewhat like throughout my whole life, but never this polarizing. I think like what kind of is setting everything off, because the numbers, right, of like deportations, all like the numbers are not crazy or that different from prior administrations. So the numbers didn't change, right? It's the narrative that's really changed, and the person behind it and the things that are being communicated, and kind of going off to your guys' point, it's just the labels. I think with social media and everything that's out there now, like students are being forced to pick a side, and along with those sides, they're forced to inherit labels of how they see themselves and how they see the people, the opposers, or whatever you might see. And that's where like the real harm and danger is. It's really easy to hate like people right now, no matter what side you're on. And it's sad because we're supposed to hate the thing. Like, I hate the injustice, right? I hate the mistreatment. I hate the dehumanization that's happening. But it's now been reflected on people, where like if whoever is in the midst of that process, like I now hate them too. I was just talking with a student, and I told him, I said, the moment we allow ourselves to hold the worth and value of lives around us, like once we become the deciders and the factors of who's worthy and who's valuable, like we get to really, really dangerous territory. And I think that's what we're seeing now. And so I think the big thing for us, I know of families and students that like this is a real fear point for them. Um, but I think the big thing that I've been trying to push in my conversations is like hate the thing, like not the people behind the thing, right? Like, this is not against flesh and blood. Like there's, spiritual powers and principalities that's behind all of this, and the gospel lens is like, we need to see that it's beyond us. Like if we truly believe in the words of Jesus, then even those that are doing evil, they're captives of evil. It's not that they're like like the source and the origins of evil. Like there is like Satan is behind all of this, and as much as the news and social media wants us to dehumanize people, no matter where they stand or where they're at, like we need to understand that they're just as much captives of a stronghold. And it's hard to remind students of that, because again, like they're in a culture and in a place where it's like, are you for this or that? Are you this or that? Like, are you a bigot or are you this? Like, and it's like it's such a challenging place for them to be in. And I think where it gets really hard, and I don't know if you guys have noticed this during COVID, and during a lot of the Black Lives Matter protests, but you start to find out that like some of your people are like not where you thought they were, and these conversations, and sometimes even within the church. And so that's been the hardest thing, from a Latino perspective. that's been the biggest surprise. It's where some of like other Latinos are in the process of it, we're a part of a multi-ethnic church, so we're not predominantly Hispanic, but like or Latino, but seeing that I think has been interesting as well. And then also too like this ongoing narrative um, that like when you're in the communities, when you're in the spaces, when you yourself are experiencing the things that are going on and you see that it's against the narrative of national news, like you kind of like you almost feel gaslit in a sense, right? Because like there's this one narrative that like those being detained, there's specific reason and all that, but yet like we're seeing that like this landscaping truck just got stopped randomly, right? And there was no like premise for them getting stopped other than the fact that they were some like Hispanic looking dudes in orange shirts, and this is real and this has happened. We've had students whose parents were stopped because of this. There was a mom from another church who was detained and had all her papers and everything, but the crazy part is that the system was like behind in where she was in her status. And even though she had the proper documentation, because the system was reading that she did it, they still like took her in. And so you're seeing all of these things that are happening, and then like you got like these like people say like no, like this is how we're doing it. These are the people we're after, and you're like yes, but like our people in our neighborhoods, like they're not a part of that group that you're speaking of. And so like it's really difficult to kind of number one figure out what the narrative truly is, how to like make sure that truth is the foundation of it all, and then even when there's clear injustice, to help students look at the people doing the injustice and still say like hey, they still have the image of God and we still need to love them, and we cannot like become the Pharisees, I guess, in this sense. You know what I mean? And so like the same way we're pushing to help like everybody see that like all the like immigrants and all of the people that are kind of caught up in all of this, that they have the image of God. Like you have to look at the other side too, and be willing to have the same conversation and stand your ground. Like we can't live in that hypocrisy. And so it's like a lot of stuff, but I think those have been like kind of the big things for sure.
No, it's really good, bro. It's really helpful. Appreciate that. As you guys were talking, something I was thinking about in this book that I read, I actually have it here. It's called Hitting the Ball You Can't See by a guy named Yuri Creel. And he talks about this bell-shaped curve that is kind of fallen. Well, he talks about the bell-shaped curve, and it's kind of like inverse now in the sense that before we had like this centralized medium by which we all got information, and then we dialogued about that centralized medium, right? So like everybody basically was arguing their position on something from the same centralized location. And now because of social media, we all are now arguing our positions from other sides of the aisle. There is no middle ground. There is no bell-shaped curve, if you will. There is no centralized medium for us anymore. The middle has fallen out, and now there's only extremes, right? And so that's why that's contributing to this reality that people are having conversations and simply cannot understand the other person because there's been no space to hear that side of the story in the echo chamber of their social media feed. You get what I'm saying? And so I'm curious, have you guys seen that or experienced that? And then like, what's the answer? Or what should we do? Should we be not on social media ourselves? Should we be challenging students to get off social? Should we because I feel like it's contributing to the hysteria. It's contributing to, everything that's happening, and it's doing this, right? And all of us have kind of mentioned it. So what do we do? You know what I'm saying? Do we do anything? Do we just continue to champion, hey, everybody is made in the image of God? Or are there practical steps that we should be taking as youth leaders to try and affect the way the students that we're engaging with and the families that we're engaging with are having this conversation or not having it?
I think we need to do a better job of listening. I think more often than not, we show up in these spaces looking to provide solutions, looking to say, well, here's what scripture says. Here's what this says. This is what you should do. And this is what I think. And I think we really need to sit in those spaces and go, hey, I probably don't have an answer, but I want to hear. I want to listen. I want to know I want to show up. How can I best show up for you in this space? Use language like, tell me more about how you're feeling. Tell me more about this, because there's something truly cathartic about having a sanctuary or safe space to emote. And in this day and age, we are privately processing things, which is okay, but it can also be truly problematic. I think we said it on another podcast. I was talking to you, and we said that if you're the only person giving yourself advice, you're always going to be right, and you're probably wrong. But some of us are doing that, and we need to have spaces like this to say, "Hey, and here's how I feel." And like Jesse said, let's deal with the narrative, false or factual. Let's deal with it.
Yeah, for me, I'm gonna be honest and say, and I was just in another conversation this morning about how to unplug from social media, and it's very difficult, this balance of staying informed and, you know, consuming all the negativity. And then social media, I don't know about anybody else here, but people don't really text or call anymore. My people communicate through social media platforms as like that's the new way of texting and telephone calls. And so it's just like this stuff is in your face constantly. And once you click on one video or one post, then your algorithm is always retrained to see the same thing over and over. And so if you end up watching trauma occurring, trauma is going to be the constant thing that falls on your timeline. I don't have any real answers to it because I'm still trying to figure it out. And it's tough. And I want to be able to, as a youth pastor, and as Will said, I would like to have the right answers, but I don't. And I don't even want to try to have the right answers right now. And I do agree with Will. Like, we have to create spaces of listening. And I think, even I think we can learn a lot from our young people in this season, and hearing their voices and hear how they're dealing with this, because they get to see it from a different lens that we do. And often the conversations I've been having recently is many of them just, they don't understand, or they're practicing empathy and wondering why their friends are being targeted. And it's an interesting subject for a time, but I think we just have to really support one another in this season, because I know for me sometimes, as a person who gets passionate about these things, I want to go off the rails sometimes. And
Yeah.
I need my brothers like you all to pray for me, because sometimes, like, I want to start typing that social media post and then I delete it, but sometimes I type it and then I hit send. And I don't, sometimes it may be productive and it's not, but I think for me, I don't want to be silent, but I need to find healthy ways to process this in this season. And if I can help find ways for myself, maybe I can practice that with others who are dealing with the same thing.
That's good, Thomas. Yeah. I I'm with you all on this. I, I think there are a lot of ways, like you said, Thomas, to because I feel the same way. I feel compelled, convicted to not be silent, but I don't know how to do that um, all the time. And so I think it's a yes and. I think there is a balance between, like, maybe don't scroll through 2 hours of TikTok videos before you go to bed. Um, maybe,
That part.
but at the same time, I mean, that's where we all live. That's where we interact with people. That's the reality of it. And so I think having that, it's a yes and situation. but over everything, prioritizing that human connection, in person, face to face with people. Because even in a text or a call, if I'm reaching out to you guys, there's some richness lost, without having that conversation either in person or you can see somebody's face. So I think something as simple as that is just, if you're prioritizing more time talking to people and checking in and just being with people, doesn't have to have an agenda or anything, especially with people that are affected by all the issues with immigration right now. And like you said, Will, listening more than speaking. I think that in itself will help curb some of that just lizard brain survival mode, constantly on edge. If you can take a breath and listen to people that you care about. And I learn stuff all the time when I'm talking to families, and my perspective shifts and how I approach things shift. And then it lets me know too, like what action I can take. I've started doing different things because I've learned like, oh, this helps families in our neighborhood versus me, doing other things, if that makes sense.
I mean, I've probably deleted my socials like 3 times in the last couple months because of this. It's like, I think like the thing that we have to like constantly remind ourselves, and I think students too, is like we're being exposed to stuff our mind should never experience. You know what I mean? We're seeing videos we should never see, and like, and I think that there is like an overconsumption of unhealthy like watching that's happening. You know what I mean? And like, because whether or not you're actually there, seeing videos of traumatic events can be traumatizing. And like, if you're doom scrolling, like you were saying, your algorithms know what you're looking at, and so all of a sudden that becomes your whole entire like feed. I remember, bro, like when when my wife was pregnant, like I saw this one video about SIDS, and I was like, what the heck is SIDS? And all of a
Oh,
sudden, it
bro.
was just all over. So I was
Ooh.
done. Like I'm not doing this. Like, kidding me? Like saying it behind me, but like it's just like one of those like things where I think like it's important that we push back on like the online narrative that like we have to be fully consumed. We have to have fast opinions. We have to have a complete take. We have to immediately stand on one polarizing side of whatever story is happening. And I think every part of like society will kind of push for that. And I truly believe the church is one of those places where you can wrestle right in the middle, where you don't have to have an immediate opinion, where you don't have to have an immediate stance, where we can become like the filter. Maybe there's no medium anymore, but we can still have places that filter, you know.
Mm.
And
I
so
mean,
like,
maybe we're the medium, right? Like you're saying, maybe
yeah,
it's the
it
church. Maybe
you
we're
know what
that
I'm saying?
central, that central piece in society that, I'm
Yeah.
saying, people can, the middle ground. That's
hmm
good, bro.
Yeah, I'll try. I mean,
Jesse, yeah.
yeah, like don't chew on the coffee beans, man. Like allow it to brew up a little bit, so you can have a
Don't
proper
you, I'm going to
taste.
use that.
Yeah,
Don't you
because
copy
it's
me.
nasty, right? Unless you cover
That's
that thing in
good.
chocolate, but like, yeah. But I think just having that place, and then also like for us, just being open and vulnerable, not with how we feel, but like I don't know where I'm at. Like this stuff is hurts to watch, and I can't watch it all right now. So it sucks that this is happening, but I don't have a full opinion because I'm choosing to not be fully consumed by this. And that's not being silent. That's not running. That's you protecting your health and protecting your own sanity. And letting students know that like this doesn't have to be, because at the end of the day, like there's watching enough to know that something's going wrong and having enough to know like I could do a next step. Maybe it is like loving my neighbor better. Maybe it is supporting certain businesses, whatever it might be. At that point, bro, take the next step and then just like have a boundary, because then you're just fully consumed by it, and that's where the hate and and all of that stuff can start to brew because you're just so consumed by it.
Mm.
But
What's interesting is, yeah, I just got done. I was having another conversation about this earlier, actually. And just full disclosure, like, so I'm hardly on social media at all. I got the reframe social media. I don't have personal social media. If you look for me, you won't find. I'm not on there. And what I found is, and that was like an intentional decision by me. Like, I can't do this, especially like being in the mental health world. Like, the things that I hear from people in the therapy room is difficult enough, right? So then to also open your social media feed, see all that trauma, see all these reasons why your life sucks, see all these reasons why you don't make enough money, see all these reasons why you're fat, right? And then see the world on fire. It's not, I'm good, bro. I can't do it. So I made this conscious decision to tune it out. And like kind of to our point, and I'm trying to like bring this together and then ask you guys a question. And this middle ground I really like this idea of like us being the church or the youth pastor specifically being the middle ground for students. Like one of the things I found is because most of the time I don't know. And like I find out because I talk to y'all and y'all are like, yo, did you see this? Or one of y'all posts it in our group chat, or I'm talking to somebody else, or one of the students come to me like, yo, did you see this video? I'm like, I don't know what you're talking about. I have no clue. I have no idea. And what I found is it actually gives me the opportunity to have dialogue. Tell me about it. What do you think about it? What do you feel about it? And I'm actually really genuinely learning from the first time. And like almost me not really having an opinion about it gives me the ability to like kind of listen more, maybe. And so then I become this like person that they can come have dialogue and conversation with and like pull them into that middle ground, so to speak. So, and obviously I want to run that balance of like, hey, I don't want to just have my head in the sand. You know what I'm saying? And like, I don't hear nothing. I don't see nothing until it's at my doorstep. You know what I'm saying? It's like, oh, it's too late. You know what I mean? Like, I don't want it to be like that either. But I've definitely like personally made this decision to just be like, yo, I'm not on this thing at all. And when the information I get is usually from other people, or if I jump onto YouTube, I might see something or whatever else. Like, what do you guys think about that? Should we be that middle ground? Are we resisting culture in a way that honors God by not being on social media and being like, hey, living in a different way? Is that something that we should do? Is that a way that we should chart for our students? Like, hey, resist these narratives on social media that want to teach you to hate one another. Yeah, and like you guys, I've heard some of you guys say, like, that's how people communicate as well. So I know it's complex. I'm just trying to, like, work it through as we talk about it. Is that something we should do? Is it not? What do you guys think? Is that incarnational?
I'm going to maybe jump in, and I could be totally wrong. I think we have to teach in a way of how it impacts our mental health. I think that partly I think there has been some groups of people who say they don't watch the news or they don't pay attention to social media, but it's a way of them avoiding engaging or avoiding having to deal with it at all. And when I say, and I'm trying to be careful with my words, but I think there's this way, like, well, if I don't watch it, I don't have to deal with it. If I don't watch it, I don't have to address it. If I don't watch it, that doesn't affect me for a certain population of people. And so, but I think for us that are, and especially those who are in the fight of justice, and trying to model Micah 6:6-8, I think that you have to decide how much that you're willing to consume and how this impacts your mental health. There's going to come to a point where I know I'm going to have to shut off the social media feeds, just for my own personal peace. And even though it's difficult, but I know I'm going to have to because I can't keep consuming trauma on a daily basis. And I think I would tell the same to others that who I do get to have conversations with, that, and even our students. And because I think it's harmful whether you are consuming trauma, and I also think it's harmful if you're just gaming all day. It's just like, I think there's different effects of just like being totally consumed with technology. I mean, we can kind of make it like our vice in a sense. And so, so I think we have to approach it from a mental health standpoint. I could be wrong about that, but that's just like, I And I think we have to also, from a spiritual practice standpoint, um, kind of tie into mental health. And how do we go back and teach the basic things of like quiet time with God and meditation and journaling and doing the things that gives us joy and allowing us to sit still with God so that we can hear from God and not hear all the noise that's going
Mm.
around us. Not that we're going to completely just be void of it all the time, but how do I get persons to lean into spiritual practices as well?
No, that's good. Maybe that is it, right? In terms of it's an issue of capacity, but it's also an issue of what are you leaning into first? What's your priority, right? Are you leaning into time with God and allowing that to shape your mind, heart, perspective, and then entering into the world, or are you entering into the world first, and is that shaping who you are more and polarizing you and teaching you to hate others? You know, yeah, that's good. I like that. What other thoughts y'all got?
I was listening to a podcast the other day, and the gentleman was talking about, he was like, everybody wants that dog, you know, and he talks about having that dog is this drive to achieve and to do and to go and to accomplish. And he said, but having that dog without discipline is destructive. And so I think that being aware of social media and the things out there, it's good, but we do have to put in certain disciplines to help us to regulate our life and how we're going to live it. I see the benefit of social media and things of that sort, but I've had to, like I said, regulate my time. Like say, okay, I won't get on until after 5. It's now my thing, because what I was realizing is my attention span in other areas was shifting because I'm on to the next thing quickly. Watch this, on to the next thing, on. And so I had to do practices to help me to focus for an extended amount of time. Like, we're just going to do this and then do that. But by scrolling and doing like that, my attention span was just way too fast. I do see the benefit of being aware of what's happening in the world, listening, hearing, but also protecting your peace. But here's the last thing I'll say is we're in Black History Month, and there's a lot that's being processed and achieved, and redistricting of things and the way things are happening, and that's a whole nother conversation. But the reality of it all is if as members of the church, if we are not taking the time to process our own trauma, if we're not taking the time to sit with it, and then someone comes to us with theirs, we're going to give them solutions like, well, let's just pray about it. And they're like, okay, well, cool. And then they're still struggling, right? Or we're looking at their trauma through the lens of our trauma because we have not taken the time to sit with it ourselves. I believe one of the big things, and it's not a buzzword, is mental health. Like, we need to, I love what Jeff was saying. I love what Tom was saying. The spiritual practices of grounding, of journaling, like, it's crucial because we're literally just recycling our thoughts, and then it's bad. But I don't know. I'm rambling at this point, but I will say this. Oh man, this might not make the roll, but you can edit this out. I think about my wife asked me the other day, why do you still allow people that have such negative rhetoric to still be on your timeline? And I was like, because just as much as I'm exposed to them, they are exposed to me. I think about, they got to see my feed and all the things that I talk about, how here's how God is, here's what this is what I believe. And so just as much as they are presenting their light in their way, we have to as well. I think about how Peter was with Jesus, and Peter was like, oh, you are the Son of God. And he's like, flesh and blood didn't reveal that to you. And then like a couple of verses later, he was like, no, you're never going to leave us. And what does Jesus say? Get thee behind me, Satan. Like, he had a hard conversation with that cat, but he never got rid of him. And I think we need to consider that in some spaces where our friends can say some foolish things, but we address the issue and not get rid of the person.
It's good, bro. It's good.
Yeah, that spiritual formation piece, the rhythms and the habits that we have every day. I think sometimes we treat that like an add-on or an extension of our life rather than like this is what we're going to build everything around. And I've noticed, I mean, it should just be obvious, but I've noticed it in my life when I'm journaling, when I'm being mindful, when those are the priority, and I build the rest of my schedule around that. I have incredible capacity to deal with these issues or have conversations, or I find myself just not even. I don't react foolishly or have an immediate reaction to things. I'm able to have some discernment and wisdom because I've got those. I've got that peace. I've got all the time with God and being able to have. I've already processed my emotions because of those practices, and what an incredible tool and way of living to be able to pass that along to the youth that we work with. Like if you are feeling this way, like you're feeling anxious and angry all the time, it doesn't have to be this way. Yes, you should feel anxious sometimes. Yes, you should feel angry with things that are happening, but here's how you can recognize those emotions, and then here's how you work with that. I think that's a part of the conversation that is often lost because we haven't built up those daily rhythms and habits through it. And what a powerful thing for a young person, somebody that's in high school, to be able to fall back on something as simple as taking a breath before you respond, just things like that.
I think what an important part too with all of this, right? Because I mean, social media, it's easy, right, to act in support of something or someone. And like, I always remind, because like, part of like, getting to talk with these kids is you start to know all about their business, right? So you know what they want to be, and then you know who they are too. And, like one of the things that I always bring up whenever we kind of have like any type of cultural conversation, whether it's from a series or on one-on-ones, it's like, how is your anger in this translating to how you love that kid at school, right? How does your anger at what's happening here translate to that one person that said this about you? Because it sometimes, oftentimes, like, they show this outpouring of support online, but yeah, at school, they're still treating that kid like crap. And like the two don't correlate, right? And so like this is a moment where we can also say like, social media activism isn't activism if it doesn't translate to real life love and transformation within the communities you find yourself in. It's a facade, and like, and it's always like a harder truth, right? But it's like, no, like you can't say that you care about this people group if like you're part of the reason why this kid hates school every morning, and it's just these are always a good reminder of self-reflection, where you're like, man, if there was a camera that was just zooming in on my life, what would be the narrative around how I love my neighbor? Would it be of the same things that anger me online, or would I be a contributor to the evil and destruction and the vision that I'm seeing around me?
That's good, bro. That's really good. Yeah, man. It sounds like, I think that's a really important point that you guys are making concerning spiritual formation. And it's funny because I actually did a student conference this past weekend. It was called Jesus Every Day, and it was about spiritual formation and the need for kids to live for Jesus every day. And the point I was trying to make to them was like, spiritual formation practices become really boring if they're just survival tactics, right? Like, hey, this is how you just survive in the world because Jesus died so you don't get to go to hell and you get to go to this place called heaven one day. And so you're in the in-between right now, and you do all these spiritual things to just kind of survive in this like world that God's going to blow up eventually and get rid of, right? But if Christ is reconciling the world to himself, if he is resurrected into the new creation and through faith has invited you into that new creation, and Christ is reconciling all things to himself and redeeming things, and you're now a part of that great commission to teach people and to baptize people and to bring that redemption into this world that we live in right now, to see that new creation grow throughout the world that we live in. That's a much more compelling vision. And in spiritual formation practices become about living into the story that is the truest story, the realest story, the resurrection, Christ redeeming us and reconciling us to himself, and now calling us to go do that for the sake of others, right? As opposed to just some kind of survival tactic. Now it actually becomes the way that I live into reality, right? As opposed to the way that I survive. And so I think, once again, it's like, for that spiritual formation piece, if we had that, if we were teaching kids how to live into the gospel story, right, and not any other story, and also help them recognize that there are other stories shaping them, because I think that's something we don't talk about enough. Like, as you consume this stuff, it is doing something to you. It is making you believe certain things. It is making you feel certain things. It is giving you a picture of the good life, of what that's supposed to be. And one of those good life pictures is, hey, we have our corner over here and nobody else can get in, and it's ours. You know what I'm saying? And once we have that, we're good. You know what I mean? And so that's a narrative. That's a story that we're being sold. And we're like, our society's living out of that. And that's not the gospel. Do you get what I'm saying? And so, yeah, man, I think you guys are really hitting something on the head when you're talking about spiritual formation practices being an essential part of how we help kids look at this stuff the right way. Because ultimately, like, it's not us, right? Like, we need the Spirit to transform them in the same way the Spirit is transforming us. And if that's not happening, then, you know what I'm saying? We ain't doing nothing, bro. We ain't doing nothing. You know what I mean? No, that's good. Y'all got any more thoughts on that before I wrap this thing up? I guess I said it best then, huh?
Absolutely.
No, this is good. This is good conversation. I enjoyed this. Okay, well, I think we also have our next two topics. Just saying. I heard racism. I heard mental health. Those sound like two important conversations to me. Just saying. Those would be dope. All right. Well, for the listener, as we always say, this is the beginning of the conversation, not the end. Questions, comments, concerns, you know where to find us. We out here. But we want to chop it up. We want to have these hard conversations about things that matter, because if we're not having them, then we're becoming further and further divided, and there's no room for us to really grow in the gospel together, right? And be image bearers together in the way that ultimately Christ has called us to, and ultimately what we're going to see in the new kingdom. And so our responsibility is to see that heaven meet earth, right? And we're committed to that. And so part of that is having these dialogues, and those dialogues leading to us loving our neighbor, as Jesse said best. So appreciate y'all. Love y'all. And we will talk to you guys next time. Peace.